Hello, welcome to the Liberty Show. I'm Ron Senkush, and with me today is Jim Gillen, who's a member of our local Libertarian Party. And we're going to talk to you a little bit today about the gun incident that happened the murders that happened in Oregon.
Yes.
And we're also going to talk again about the non-aggression principle, which is something we've spoke about before on the show. So let's start off. Jim, last week we had a shooting at a college in Oregon. It was a gun-free zone. Is that correct? And 10 people lost their life. Is that correct also?
That's my understanding of the information. Yes.
That's my understanding as well. Of course, the media is all afire with trying to release the details about the shooter and what he did and what mind state he was in and who he's associated with and what groups he belonged to.
Right, absolutely.
Right, which they always do. But what do you think, Jim? Talk a little bit about the backlash of that and what people are saying now and what they're calling for.
What I've seen are a lot of people who are already tired of hearing about the murderer. There have been several stories about how this particular person seems to have taken a lot of his inspiration from the events that happened just, last month or a month and a half ago on the other coast.
Right.
And how this person was looking for his few minutes of fame. And as such, it appears as though the media is buying into it as well, because we haven't heard quite so much about this particular murderer. And I've also seen and read articles where people are trying to boast more about the heroes who tried to intervene. And these are all very good things. But my concern, and where this becomes a political issue, is should we have gun-free zones? Should we have zones where people who are registered to carry cannot carry? Does it really make those zones any safer? Because as far as I can tell, it just takes the guns out of the hands of people who would be responsible, law-abiding carriers. And as we all know, what makes a criminal is the fact that they don't care about the laws that are established, the rules that are established, the social norms that are established. They do what they're going to do. That's what makes them criminals. So having a gun-free zone doesn't take the guns out of the hands of criminals. It just takes the guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens who might otherwise be able to defend themselves or other law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, you see, I'm on Facebook more than I should be, I guess, and it's on fire with memes of what's going on and you know, the quick little quips and, you know, snarky comments and those sorts of things. And one of the popular ones I'm seeing it basically alludes to, I don't know it verbatim, but you know, gun-free zones work just like drug laws keep crack off the streets, or you know, keep meth off the streets. And you know, I find it ironic in one particular way that's almost funny, if it weren't so sad, that a lot of these people that are making those posts are probably anti-drug, right? And they think the drug war is a good thing, and yet they're really making their own case against it at the same time. And I guess in that way, the two issues sort of dovetail. You know, you can't. Here's a substance that we have made illegal. Lots of substances, lots of these drugs. And yet they're everywhere. You know, they're everywhere. Anybody can get them whenever they want. They're out there. And so we've made the substance illegal, but yet they're everywhere and people can get them, right? And so, but somehow we think magically, if we make guns illegal, they're just going to disappear and no one will ever be shot by them, right? And to the credit somewhat of the typical anti-gun crowd, I was almost floored by a conversation I saw that someone had posted on Facebook from MSNBC, from that morning show that they have. I think it is Daily, I don't know, Joe something or another, whatever it is. Joe Rogan, I think, is the guy on there. Is that right? Whatever it is. No, it's not him? Okay. Joe Rogan's him, mate. That's right. There's a guy on MSNBC, I think his name's Joe, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't watch it a lot, but this guy was basically saying, you know something, we have to go back to the drawing board. because there were a lot of gun laws in Oregon. A lot of them. A lot of the registration laws were in place. A lot of the background checks. I mean, Oregon was not an easy place to get a gun as gun laws go. It's much more difficult there than in lots of places. And of course, obviously, it didn't do a thing. And I think some of them are starting to put that together. They still, like all of us, don't want to see a senseless tragedy like this. No one wants to see people murdered. But you have to do something. If you're going to do something, it has to be effective.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I think that they're starting to see that this is just not effective. We've been on the wrong track. It's time, I think, for us to reach out to each other and say, yes, we all want this to stop, but what are the things that we can do to help prevent this? Because the things you've been trying are not going to work.
True. I'd like to see more education, in all honesty. Why not gun training programs out there? Not that I'm real big on having the government push more things down our throats. Of course, being libertarian, I'm all for smaller government. But of all the things that the government requires us to do at 18, they don't require us to take a course in handgun safety.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, it's a good point. And lots of people are questioning what goes on in education as well. I mean, people are saying that, we don't teach somebody about credit. We don't teach people about, debt,
yes.
Right? And we don't teach people about how to keep a checkbook.
No, instead,
right?
Actually, we indoctrinate them in it by revamping old games such as Monopoly, and now they take swipe cards.
Yeah.
Or old McDonald's playset type things where they just take swipe cards now.
Right.
And in fact, all we're doing is we're training people to use credit to be more indebted.
Right. And so lots of people are looking at those issues and questioning things, which we've been doing for quite some time as libertarians. We've been asking tough questions. So also we want to take a little bit of a conversation into the non-aggression principle today, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We were hoping to have a guest on the show today. It doesn't look like it's going to happen at this point, but we're holding out hope that he might call in, who wants to run for president on our libertarian ticket. And one of the interesting things about this guest is that he's not a fan of the non-aggression principle, as I understand it.
So how does that make him a libertarian?
Well, that's a great question, and it's one that I've recently been pondering a bit, and has been brought up to me. It was my understanding when I became a libertarian that the non-aggression principle was essentially the linchpin of libertarianism. Like, that was the foundation that it all grew on. And of course, if you don't know what the non-aggression principle is, we'll remind you again. We talked about it several times on the show, but it basically states that no person has the right to use force on another person as long as that person is engaged in peaceful activity, is not committing fraud or harming someone or their property. Yep. Right? And so we try to, I believe the Libertarian Party basically states that in the preamble of our platform, and goes on to our goal is to tie our policy back to the non-aggression principle. At least I thought it was. But recently it was brought to my attention that there are plenty of people, who, at least a small group, I'm not sure how large they are, how many they are, but who fully believe that libertarianism as a political philosophy doesn't necessarily have to include the non-aggression principle. And they're expanding it to say that if you just want a smaller government than we have now, and less intrusion and more freedom, that's really good enough. And you can be part of the party and part of the movement. And so at first I was really taken back by that, and I thought to myself, well, if you don't stick to that principle, then how do we set our policy, and how do we talk to people about what it is to be a libertarian, and how do we get the message right? Mm-hmm. And but I think that part of the problem might be that libertarianism can be a philosophy, mm-hmm. and it's also a political party and a political movement. And I guess I'm starting to realize that not necessarily do they have to be in complete alignment. Maybe?
I don't know. I can see where it's difficult to take that the theory of non-aggression, and then try to organize a group of people by implementing it.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Because inside of any organization, it makes sense that you have to, at times, compel people to do things that they may not necessarily want to do. Now, compelling is different from forcing.
That's right.
A person still always has the right to say, no thank you, it is not for me.
That's right.
So I believe that we can get the two, we can marry the two, the theory and the application.
Mm-hmm.
But I also can understand how some people might not be able to cognitively understand the difference.
Right.
If you will.
Personally, as an individual, I don't think we need to go insofar as to say, well, if you don't believe in the non-aggression principle, you're not welcome here, or we don't want you on our team. It certainly would. It certainly wouldn't. And so, I'm trying to get my arms around, where they're coming from and understand their complaints about the non-aggression principle. And our guest today, that we were hoping to have shared that opinion, and I was really hoping to get his insight and found out, where he felt like it didn't apply, or what reason he had behind it. We'll work, if we don't get this guest on today, I'll work on getting another guest, or perhaps him in the future, on the show, and we will have this discussion in the future. But again, to me it was the linchpin of libertarianism, and I'm hard to understand how we are libertarians without it. But yet I don't want to say you wouldn't be welcome here, or you can't be part of our movement. Because we've always had, this party has always had the split between what I would call the pragmatists and the purists, right?
Sure.
And I'm not sure which one of those I am anymore. When I first came in, I thought for sure I was a pragmatist. I thought that, as long as we were moving the bar more towards liberty policy, we consider that a win and a worthwhile goal,
sure.
Right? If taxation right now takes 50% of our income, and somehow we could, through our political efforts, we could reduce that to 35, on the way to 15, on the way to 0, I see that as
progress.
Incremental progress and victory. But, the purists of the party or whatever would have been, wait a minute, 35% tax is still way more than we should pay. How can we advocate for a tax that taxes people at 35? Well, I guess the only way you can really advocate it is if the reality is you're at 50, right? But I didn't understand the purists, I don't think, when I was very new into the party. I thought, are you kidding me? How do we get, we're not going to get from 50 to 0 in one step.
Sure.
It just doesn't work that way. And
we didn't go from 0 to 50 in one step.
Exactly right. And I still wholeheartedly believe there is no 50 to 0 switch that we just throw and it happens. Right. It's just not going to happen.
Well, you've heard the old saying, how do you boil a toad?
That's right. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. You put him in a pan with normal temperature water,
right,
and you turn up the heat so slowly that he doesn't even notice that he's boiling.
Right.
And a lot of that is where we are today. The temperature in the pan has gone up so slowly that none of us have noticed, yet we're boiling to death. Right. Had they just turned the heat up,
exactly right,
we all would have hopped right on out.
Exactly right. And that's a great analogy, Jim. And so anyway, I have come to appreciate, though, the purists in our party more over the years. I don't think I'm officially one yet, but I honestly and truly I have come to appreciate them, because they're the ones that always are there to remind us if we start to go astray. And they do provide a role in the party where somebody has to stand up and say, that policy is still pretty statist. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so, okay, maybe we're going to do that, but we better not forget for a minute that we're really trying to get much further.
Right.
Right. And so we need people like that around, and I don't want them to leave.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't want them gone, like I might have the first time I was introduced to them. I was really shocked by this, and I was like, well, wait a minute, how can this even be? So I'm not sure which of them I actually am anymore. I'm not sure it really matters.
You're a hybrid.
I'm a hybrid, I guess, yeah. So I can appreciate that. So that being the case, that I was kind of going somewhere with that about this issue now with the non-aggression principle,
yeah,
right? And so if now this is another battlefront, if you will, or another way for us to have a dialogue or a conversation about policy or how we move forward, I'm trying to remain at least open-minded to the fact that people could come and join us if they didn't wholeheartedly believe in the non-aggression principle.
That would be libertarian of it.
It would be. And so I'm anxious to hear someone come on the show and explain that part. To the best of my understanding, all I've really been exposed to so far are certain scenarios about where they're basically saying you kind of have to, in some way, shape, or form, or the situation is so dire, right? In the scenarios they're describing, that you're led down a path to say, well, yeah, I have to violate the non-aggression principle. But even in so much that you do, I don't think it, in my humble opinion, I don't think that's proof that the principle is wrong or bad. I think it still stands. One of the cases they used to describe it was, let's say you're lost in the woods, and you've been out there for a long time, and you need water desperately, and you need food, and you're probably going to die if you don't find some, but you stumble across a cabin that's locked that has those provisions inside, right? Yeah. And so the question is, well, do you violate, the non-aggression principle doesn't stand anymore because you have to harm that person's property and steal from him to save your life, right?
Yes, and that's a fun little mental exercise. Mm-hmm. But that's still in the realm of theoretical and purist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's look at something pragmatic for a
Sure.
moment. Taxes. I don't think there are very many educated people out there who would say that we should have no taxes. Because if we had no taxes, then there would be no government. And if we had no government, it would all be anarchy. And I think it doesn't take a lot of mental exercise to play that one out and see that that's not a very good thing. So taxes in and of themselves are not inherently evil. Now, the way that they are being applied in this country right now, I don't think you'll find anybody who's exactly very happy with them.
Right.
So, somewhere in between is a nice compromise. But, tying this back into the non-aggression principle, to demand taxes is a violation of the non-aggression.
Right.
We say that everybody should contribute what they're willing to, what they're happy contributing. That's more of a purist standpoint on it. Somewhere in between is a compromise, and it's not entirely purist, but it's not entirely statist.
Exactly.
And we have a responsibility to help upkeep this society that we have. So we should pay a fair portion. But is it fair that one section of the population gets to pay this amount, and the other section gets to pay this amount, and yet another section gets to pay this amount, and that those who have the means to pay for people who know where the loopholes are get to pay effectively nothing? No, that's not fair.
So if we could get to situations where we voluntarily fund these things, would be the ideal libertarian solution.
That's ideal, but it's pragmatic.
It's certainly not pragmatic in the in going from here to here, right?
Sure.
I mean, possibly put that as the end goal, and we can work towards that someday. But there's no switch that we instantly push that gets us from here. Yeah, that's a process, right? That we're going to have to take. And we always keep this as the goal, and we may fall short. We may fall short if people just won't agree to it. Right now we have it much the other way, right? Yeah. And people have agreed to that, to some extent.
Mostly tacitly.
That's right.
Mostly by burying their heads in the sand.
That's right.
Is how we've agreed to it.
Exactly right. So interesting that you bring that up. And so getting back to the scenario of the woods thing, I would contend that I'm probably going to break into that cabin. I'm just gonna tell you right now, if I'm starving, I'm out there in the woods. There's water in there. I need water to survive. But that doesn't mean, to me, that the non-aggression principle doesn't stand. I violated it. I willfully violated it. And I'm still, I believe, on the hook for the damages that I caused and things that I steal from that cabin to stay alive. You know, just because I did it doesn't mean I was justified or that I should be free and clear of the ramifications for breaking it.
Sure.
You know, I'm still on the hook to owe whoever owns that cabin, you know, the repair, the damage I did to break in, the things that I stole from him, you know, I mean, the food or water that I took, I mean, I'm on the hook to replace them at some
Now,
point.
what happens if the person who owns those things is home at the time?
Yeah, if he's home, then
Change the equation. Doesn't
it really does. I mean, at that point, I'm largely at his mercy, I would imagine, or their mercy, I should say.
So what happens? You ask, they say yes, great. Everybody's really happy. But you ask, they say no.
Yeah. So at that point, I don't know if I have the strength to fight. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I'm in that bad a shape, I'm probably just doomed, because my guess is I would have the will to fight and try to take it.
Sure.
But I don't know that I would have the strength to follow through with that. You know, I mean, actually get it done. So
what I'm hearing from you is that there's actually a separation between when a person is involved and a person is not involved.
yeah.
So you're still, it sounds like, the non-aggression applies to people more so than their things.
Yes.
Fair enough.
That's what I would say. So we're going to go ahead and take a little break right now on the Liberty Show and come back in a few minutes, and we'll see you then.
Its family name, Firebird, an Indian symbol that promises youth, beauty, and strength. And in 1977, the Pontiac Trans Am became America's #1 sports car. Trans Am styling is aerodynamically designed for outstanding road performance. A 3.23 ratio rear axle and limited shift differential gives it quick, sure acceleration. And 7515 GM specification steel belted radials, 7-inch Rally 2 wheels, heavy-duty front and rear stabilization bars, special high-effort power steering, power front disc brakes give Trans Am precise sports car handling. Trans Am, a great one for those who really want to get a kick out of driving. So put on your fake mustache and get ready to outrun Smokey. I'm Manuel Carlos, and this is Conspiracy Theorists in Cars Getting Coffee. You know, I think I'm going to give Ron a call, see if he wants to grab some coffee.
Hello, this is Ron.
Ron, hey, Manuel.
Oh, hey, Manuel, what's up?
How about I pick you up and we go grab some coffee?
Okay, but what car are you picking me up in?
I'll bring the 1977 Trans Am. It's a model before all the government spy devices were put in cars. And nothing says liberty and freedom like a Trans Am.
Hey, we need to go to a place that only serves organically grown coffee and not the genetically modified beans that are designed to sterilize us and reduce the population in 3 generations.
Ron, I think I know a place, and it's not on municipal water, so the coffee won't contain hydrofluoric acid and sodium hexafluorosilicate, which are dangerous byproducts the fertilizer and aluminum companies trick the public and local officials into putting in the drinking water to fight tooth decay, while it slowly poisons the population.
I think I know the place you're talking about. It's off the beaten path, and we won't need to go through any of those roundabouts that are designed to impede our movement and control us as part of UN Agenda 21.
Ron, make sure to bring some silver coins. This coffee shop will accept payment in silver coins, so we don't have to pay with the private Federal Reserve paper notes that are designed to make offshore bankers wealthy.
Wait a minute. I think this coffee house went out of business.
What? Why?
Yeah, well, the IRS seized all of the owner's bank accounts. He only accepted cash in his coffee house, and of course silver. He would frequently make deposits. Somebody considered this suspicious, so a suspicious activity report was sent to the IRS, and they emptied all his accounts even though he was never charged with a crime or convicted of any wrongdoing by a jury of his peers.
Oh man, that's terrible.
Yeah, and it gets worse. He found this out when he went to make a deposit into his accounts. He decided not to deposit any more cash, so he left the bank, and when he was driving home, he was stopped at one of those unconstitutional DUI checkpoints that violate our Fourth Amendment rights. The police claimed they smelled marijuana and claimed that that gave them the right to search his car without a warrant. They found the cash that he didn't deposit into the bank, plus his silver coins. The police confiscated all his cash and silver under something called the Civil Forfeiture Act. The police never found any drugs, but kept his money without a trial or anything.
What happened to the guy?
Oh, well, when his business went under, he couldn't make his mortgage payment and he lost his house.
Well, I hope he had some family that can help him out.
Well, he only had that one son, but he was killed in Afghanistan protecting our freedoms.
Ron, let's just forget the coffee. I think I'm just going to stay home this evening.
Welcome back. You know, Ron, while we were in our intermission there, we were talking back and forth about current events. And one of those events that came up were the recent Republican debates. And I'd commented that I find it very intriguing that three of the candidates who have the most momentum are three people who, as far as the American public know, have no significant political history. And to me, it appears as though the American public is ready for a change. And we certainly know that the sitting president ran on the promise of change. And it seems like the environment is even more primed now. People want something different than the establishment, something that we haven't had, because it seems like there's this common feeling that we've all been sold a bill of goods, and we don't want anybody who's baptized in those waters.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that. You know, almost every single libertarian candidate that's ever run for office hasn't had any political experience and has not been elected prior, with the exception of maybe Gary Johnson, of course, who is the two-time governor of New Mexico before he ran for our presidential candidate last time around. But yeah, I think you're onto something with that, Jim. And there's just sort of a feeling that when you talk to people in social media, you know, when you're at work, when you're just around people all across the political spectrum are really unhappy with the way things are right now. You know, some want, we're certainly not unified in what we want. Seldom are we, right? But people don't like what we have, and that's pretty evident. And I think that's why you see these Republican candidates that aren't the establishment people, that aren't the, you know, next in line, if you will, for the Republican crown, are having the most success. And you know, people like Trump who just say, you know, sometimes anything off the cuff without handlers or without people, you know, telling them, well, the polls show that you shouldn't say that, you know. He just lets it fly.
It helps to make him look more sincere to the public.
It does. And so, you know, I think that if folks are looking for a change, I think that's one of the things we bring to the table, and I think that's one of the appeals that they should consider us on Election Day.
Yes.
And so another thing I hear, I just want to bring up as a side note, you hear so many people talk about how much money is involved in politics, and I mean, you know, it's deplorable, you know, to think that, you know, our freedom and the legislation that we live under is because somebody paid somebody else to have that policy implemented because they're benefiting from it, right? And no one wants to live under those kinds of rules, you know, because they're never for your benefit. They're for the benefit of the guy who paid for them, right? And so we have this big thing, and it's bipartisan usually. I wouldn't say that issue has more traction on one side of the aisle than other. Would you?
No, not at all. They're all bought and sold.
Yes, exactly. And so, the interesting thing about that is, if folks are looking to get the money out of politics, we're the only party that's putting somebody on the ballot who runs a campaign on next to no funding.
Yes, I can certainly attest. Nobody funds the Libertarian.
Right. I mean, it's out there. I mean, you have to disclose your campaign finances, right? If you think we're lying about this, I don't think you do. But if by chance you think that somehow the Libertarian Party is bringing all this money in and hiding it or squirreling it away or doing whatever in the world you think we're doing with it, we're not. And we're duty bound to report what comes in. And I'll tell you this also, the other two major old parties are watching us like a hawk constantly for any little mess up or violation. We can't miss a dotting an I without getting called on the carpet for it, by the Election Commission. I mean, that's run by Republicans and Democrats. So, folks, if you want the money out of politics, right? I mean, you have to put your vote where your desires are.
Absolutely.
Right? And that would be with the Libertarian Party.
How do we raise money, the St. Joe Party?
How does the St. Joe County Libertarian Party raise money? through voluntary donations, like any other libertarian cause. Yes, recently we held a garage sale, and we all donated and worked that and raised money, which was fantastic. We're going to use that to pay for things like outreach booths and to support candidates that run for office. And so we have a couple of places where you can get involved if you like. You can find us online at a couple different spots. We're on meetup.com under Michiana Libertarians. We're on Facebook under St. Joe County Libertarians. You can email us at the Liberty Show, libertyshow1@gmail.com, I believe. We're going to have a graphic up on the screen that'll show that in case I've messed that up. It'll be right on the graphic. So all these are ways that you can find us and get in touch and find out how to help, and we certainly need the help.
Absolutely.
Don't we, Jim?
Oh, yes, we do.
So those are the things I wanted to touch on also. So up next for you, have a little bit of a comedy break that also lets us talk about some libertarian principles. There's a series of videos called Love Gov, and we're going to show the first one to you. It's about a 5-minute video. We're going to run that. It's great. It talks, in general, it's a scenario about somebody who meets and falls into a relationship with government, and then how that impacts them as time goes on. So we're going to enroll that now, then we'll come back and wrap up for today. Here's the video. Enjoy.
Are you spying on that lady?
No. I'm protecting her.
From who?
Herself.
Sure looks like you're spying on her.
Shouldn't you be in school or something?
I'm homeschooled.
Of course you are. Wear a helmet.
My mom says I don't have to.
Well, your mom sounds like a real idiot.
Anything I can do?
Such an idiot.
You're not an idiot, Alexis. You're trusting. It just so happens you trusted someone it was idiotic to trust.
You seemed like such a sweet guy at first.
So sorry. I will buy you all new books.
Well, that seems wasteful, but you could help me pick them up.
Of course.
Thanks.
Gov.
Gov?
Kavinsky, Scott Kavinsky, but everybody calls me Gov.
I'm Alexis.
Alexis, nice to meet you. Here.
So, do you work here?
Unofficially.
What does that mean?
Well, they don't really pay me or ask me to come. I just like to come down here for a couple hours every day and throw in my 2 cents. Seems like everybody needs to be told what to do. Now, officially, I'm a student. I'm a 6th-year senior.
What are you studying?
Poli-sci, engineering, economics, education, and nursing.
Wow, that's incredible. What are you going to do with all of that?
Everything. I mean, I really want to make the world a better place. Well, just not Iran.
Ready, Lexi? Hey. Can I have those back?
Student withdrawal form. Are you dropping out?
No. I don't know. Maybe. I'm already 15 grand in debt and I still have 2 more years to go. Plus, I kind of have a business now.
Alexis is an amazing artist. Last summer, I taught myself how to build a website for her, and now she's kicking butt selling her shirts and bags online.
And I'm making real money, not made-up internet money or something.
It just seems like a better idea to focus on that rather than going deeper into debt, getting a degree that won't even help us get a job. Look, I made a chart of cost versus benefits. I like charts.
Who is that?
She's my friend Libby.
Education is priceless. I think it's pretty crass to bring up money when we're talking about your future. I mean, you're getting a great deal here. The facilities, the faculty, world-class administration. My dorm has an Olympic-sized pool.
With all the easy money handed out to students, the university has no incentive to cut costs. And every year they spend more. You can see about it here.
Don't let information get in the way of learning. Have you thought of studying abroad?
Definitely not. Aren't those programs like twice as expensive as a regular semester?
And twice as fun. Seriously, where do you want to go? I know people in every country, though take it with a grain of salt what they say about me.
Well, I would love to go to Italy.
Right?
The food, the art. I'm a total Michelangelo fangirl. The artist, not the Ninja Turtle. Well, both.
There is a summer semester in Florence. Do it, do it, do it.
Alexis, you don't have the money for this.
That's what loans are for.
When you don't have the money for it? Sounds like somebody needs an education.
Look, I know some people. If I vouch for you, then I can definitely get you the money that you need. Maybe even a little extra.
You can do that?
Look, I know we just met, Alexis, but I care deeply about you. Maybe more than you care about yourself. And I don't want anything to come between you and the education that you desire.
I would love to go to Florence.
You deserve to go.
But you already have so much debt to pay. How will going to Italy help with that?
You're gonna have a lifetime to pay off debt. A lifetime. But your education opportunities are right now. And there's nothing more important than your education. Except maybe corn farmers.
Hope you like that. We're going to be showing you the rest of the LoveGov videos on future Liberty shows. Thanks for joining us today. And on behalf of Jim Gillen, I'm Ron Sinkush. Thanks for watching the Liberty Show. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.